Do you remember this game? Recently, I realized that the original Jak and Daxter released more than 20 years ago, and I got to thinking, is it actually any good? If I went back to this series without the blurred goggles of nostalgia and judged it as if I were playing for the first time right now, would I still think the same today as I did when I was a kid? So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go play the original trilogy, one after the other, and judge them, not as a core memory from my childhood, but on whether or not I can truly consider them to be quality titles by today's standards. Why? Because, well, I can. Plus, they were all half off on the PlayStation Store, and it lets me justify wasting time and money on games I haven't touched in 2 decades. The intro cutscene is kind of a mess. This mysterious opening narration goes on about the Precursors and how no one knows what happened to them.
Even the rocks do not recall.
And then we immediately get hit with this monster. Only one of these guys is on the box art, and this guy is Jak. So either this guy isn't Daxter, or something real fucked up is about to happen to him.
Man, that stung!
We also see 2 of the most evil people to ever exist, and this woman is, well, Naughty Dog had an audience in mind designing her. Jak commits murder, Daxter gets mutated, and we go home where no one really seems to care. I mean, seriously, no one bats an eye at this kid being turned into what looks like a weasel, like it just kinda happens to people sometimes. And then we're given our goal for this game. Travel across the world, find Gall and Maya, the only people who can get Daxter back to normal, running errands along the way so people give us their leftover batteries. With all that out of the way, we're off to the tutorial. Just as a quick aside, I know that he's called an Otzel, but I don't think that is actually said at any point in any of these games right up until the end. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I don't want to harp too hard on this game for the controls. Overall, they're fine, if a little floaty every now and then, but some choices really made my brain tingle in just the worst kind of way. For example, horizontal camera movement is inverted, but not vertical, except for when in first person, where vertical is inverted, but not horizontal. There is no option to change any of this, and I don't remember it being a problem for me as a kid, so I guess maybe I'm just too picky these days. I will, however, continue to struggle with this camera throughout the entire game. All in all, Geyser Rock is a pretty solid tutorial. Every now and again it can be a little overzealous with its instructions, but we learn how to jump, punch, spin, and anything else we might need on our adventure. Anytime the game wants to show you something it feels is important, Jak is frozen in place for a second, and then a slightly off-center cutscene plays, showing it off. We learn to pick up Precursor orbs, break red boxes for scout flies, and use Blue Eco to run faster. We also learn that Blue Eco can pick up items from far away and flip switches on some really old doors. Once we're done, we leave Tutorial Rock with 3 of the 20 initial power cells we need to grab, and now the game can begin in earnest.
Rule number 1, I don't date animals.
Did that really need to be a rule? The game can be broken down into 3 distinct hub areas, each with a different number of zones or levels branching off, serving as the actual challenging bits of the game. Our first hub area is Sandover Village, and we can do a few different things here, and in each different hub moving forward. There are more scout flies, precursor orbs to collect, and a few people to talk to, but that will change moving forward. Each interaction is a cutscene, wherein we're either given a hint on something to do, more often they just give us a actual clear task, and sometimes they'll ask for 90 precursor orbs in exchange for a power cell, sometimes more than one. Sandover is bright, it's saturated, and it's populated by like 7 people, not including us. I don't know if it's a restriction of the technology or the budget, but there are, I think, less than 24 characters in the entirety of this game, and it leads to the whole world feeling pretty empty at times. It'll be more apparent in the next hub, but hardly anyone lives in this world, and it really is kind of a shame. The personality given to each of these characters is impressive, even if they are a little bit exaggerated at times. But now back to the game. We have a few options for where to go first. I choose the beach because, well, it's closest, and Samos yelled that we have something to do there. This first level is now where we find the core gameplay loop. Just kinda do things. Each level, for the most part, will have at least one actual task that someone needs you to complete within it. Other than that, it's really up to you as the player to wander into enough places and press enough buttons that eventually something will happen. More often than not, that tends to result in a power cell. Chase some seagulls until they cause massive environmental damage, get a power cell. Punch an egg off a cliff like any mentally stable person would, get a power cell. Commit the mass murder of an intelligent species, single-handedly robbing children and wives of their fathers and husbands, emotionally scarring an entire generation, get a power cell. Very rarely, if ever, will there be any kind of interconnected story or reasoning behind these tasks. More often, I stumbled upon them by accident while just walking around. The game presents us with a goal to collect a certain number of things to progress, and then throws us out the door like a mother whose son just got a fire-breathing lizard the size of a dog. And I'm not even saying this is necessarily a bad thing, but it definitely feels a little weird that no one in this established colony of people ever climbed up to the top of this nearby ruin to grab this glowing orb we've been told is incredibly important. But I've disturbed the ecosystem of this beach enough for right now, so let's head to somewhere else and see what other natural disasters I can cause. Along the way, I grab some more orbs, interact with an ancient and powerful AI machine lifeform, and smack around a few yak, just for good measure, all in a day's work. Up next, we have the jungle, and it's largely the same, just with more throbbing plants than I would really like. We help an overzealous fisherman, and manage not to
Poison the whole darn catch!
And just a side note here, this dude will now never, ever again stop laughing. He just really loves catching these fish. By helping him, we've now also unlocked the use of his boat, which I guess we just stole before, to get back to the island where Daxter's life was ruined, so we'll probably check that out later. For now though, I'm on a mission to restore power to the town. I'm gonna skip over a little bit here, because if I went over every single power cell, we'd be here all day, and this is already gonna be long. Through my wandering, I end up inside an ancient precursor temple. A few jumps later, and I find the source of those uncomfortable vines. So now let's talk about bosses. To my knowledge, there are a total of 3 actual bosses in this game, only 2 of which are required to complete. These fights really subscribe to the idea of waiting out the boss's attack until it gives you an opening. Long portions of time spent in these fights is running or jumping left to right to dodge an attack until the clear hit me moment is presented. This is underwhelming. I love a good boss fight. Taking on an enemy objectively much stronger than yourself and then winning is a rewarding experience. This feels more like play fighting a toddler. You have to let them think they're winning for just long enough that it's socially acceptable to body slam them into a couch. It is fun to jump on this guy's head though. With the jungle explored as much as I cared to explore it, I sauntered back into town. Quick pit stop to pay off the mayor and listen to this dude ramble about his muse, and now we're off to Misty Island. Now I think the big goal here is to stop some logging operation, but in the end it doesn't really matter so long as the thing I punch gives me a shiny glowing ball. Misty Island is probably the most overall platforming heavy zone of this first group of levels. This area is littered with endless pits, bounce pads to get some extra height, and even a Donkey Kong reference there at the end. It also happens to be one of my least favorite. The colors are gloomy, the map is a pain to navigate, and this golden rat really pisses me off. We are introduced to Red Eco here, which supposedly makes our attacks do more damage. Most enemies die in one hit anyway, so it's mostly irrelevant, save for a few specific instances. I punch some things, am rewarded with the requisite power cells, and promptly fuck off back to literally greener pastures. I do also know about the speeder section that is in this area where you go around the whole lake. I didn't care enough to do it because honestly I just really dislike Misty Island that much, so do with that what you will. And with that, we've really finished all there is here to see in this first act. Sure, there are a few extra power cells here and there I could go grab, but I don't really feel the need, nor do I want to. I only needed 20 to proceed, and now I've got 30. There's no immediate reward to be had for getting the rest other than a bigger number on my screen. There's no extra story, no secrets, so screw it, I'm leaving. It is worth noting that killing the plant before did actually cause a bunch of blue eco vents in other areas to activate, allowing us to get another power cell at the beach. This is neat, but I didn't mention it before since it largely just doesn't matter. The idea of doing something in one area to open a path in a different area never comes up again that I noticed. Oh well. The zoomer sections act as a level of their own between each hub. You only need to go through each one once, but completionists may need to do multiple runs if you care about getting absolutely everything. These are pretty solid. The zoomer is appropriately floaty for a bike with a whirring insurance disaster, the only thing keeping it in the air. The sound effect of hitting blue eco to get a speed boost is great, and ramping 50 feet in the air is awesome. I hope they expand upon these mechanics in future titles. Now up next, we have Rock Village, and finally a little bit of actual plot. The blue sage is gone, and his house is trashed. There's a big lurker looming over the whole place, throwing giant boulders harmlessly into the distance. Jak definitely checks Kira out, and this guy is having a mental breakdown. Did you enjoy that plot? Good, because that's just about all we get. Sad Hercules lets us know that the blue sage was taken after building a machine to lift the boulder blocking our path, and Samos tells us that the lurkers are using a dirigible to lift precursor stuff out of the swamp, but that's the whole plot of this area. We got one goal: get enough power cells to power the machine and fight the big dude. Have you happened to notice an overarching theme yet? The first thing we do here is learn that there are some different rat things and that this researcher actually cares about them, and she wants us to go get them back in their hole, leading us now to the Precursor Basin. The Precursor Basin is a level I remember dreading as a kid, but honestly I thought it was a good time. Again, the zoomer controls are a little floaty, but I expect them to be given what I'm driving, and the high speed makes weaving around obstacles and even platforming feel really satisfying when you can get it right. The rats didn't want to go into their home at first, but I did figure it out eventually after gently nudging some baby lurkers out of this realm of existence. There are also some ring trials to do here, which were way more generous than I thought they would be, and there were even some evil plants to kill with a dusting of everyone's favorite herbicide, green eco. This was all great. It was unique, the area clearly had real thought put into its layout. Overall, I can't complain about any of this. Well done, Naughty Dog. Fun times now over in the Precursor Basin. I'm off to see what else there is to do. Now let's see, where should I head next? Well, our options are a glowing, mysterious, ancient precursor ruin deep underwater, or a gross swamp with this guy.
What's a bathtub?
So I head down the elevator to the Lost Precursor City, and again, this place is great. It's very platforming heavy, but unlike Misty Island, the overall design is fantastic, even if the camera does occasionally get stuck. I especially love the hovering twin platforms that rotate in tandem when you jump between them. I don't exactly know what I meant to be doing, but for once I didn't actually care. This whole place is so strange and vastly different to the surrounding area that it feels like I'm actually exploring the ruins of an ancient and technologically advanced civilization lost to time. I thoroughly enjoyed my time here, more so than any other zone so far. Now, Boggy Swamp is kind of a slog. It's not as bad as Misty Island in my mind, but it's still not fun to navigate. There are a lot of these jump pads going back and forth between areas, and I just can't get my head around it enough to be certain I didn't miss one, which I definitely did because the dirigible still has a tether. I guess that's a win for the lurkers. This water also damages you, which, while it's not the end of the world and is easily adapted to, it isn't super clear at first glance, and I honestly thought it'd be more like tar than acid. It does introduce us to Yellow Eco for the first time, which is fun. Yellow Eco shoots a fireball from your fist when you punch or press the punch button in first person. Unlike Red, this one actually has a few uses and is helped tremendously by its homing ability. One more act of casual genocide later and we can put this whole place behind us. Finally, we have the first required boss. Claw. Kira lifts the boulder blocking our path and we hop on up to the arena. This fight is simple, but it is fine for what it is. Jump between the 3 platforms to avoid being hit, build a bridge, and shoot him a couple times to give him the biggest concussion that's probably ever existed. Do this 3 times until you win. I can't really fault the game for not bucking established trends of the genre, but I also can't help but wish there was more to this. I wish it had been a proper arena or that we could at least damage him ourselves. It could have been the world's most dangerous game of tennis, bashing boulders back and forth until someone slips. I would have just loved a bit more control, more agency in the fight itself. At least the inclusion of the different ecotypes is unique. The next zoomer section foregoes the lava for trees, removing the impending agony of burning alive and replacing it with the threat of a massive bomb at the end of the path. Kira tells us that we need to get to the detonator and destroy it before the lurkers can set it off, but the little guys don't seem to really be trying all that hard. Plus, there's this guy at the end who definitely could have blown it the moment I rounded the corner, so maybe these lurkers don't actually want to win. The final hub area is Volcano Crater. Disregarding the logistics of an active volcano less than 100 feet from a lush, expansive forest, this area is the most barren of the lot. There are only 2 NPCs that I could find, and you talk to both in the same cutscenes. But first, I think you can guess the drill. New hub means new plot.
Gaul?
So Gaul, yes, the man that we've been trying to find this whole time to turn Daxter back, is shockingly super crazy after studying Dark Eco. He wants to open some Dark Eco silos, flood the planet in goo, and thinks the resulting world will be better than how things are. So, Now, 3/4 of the way into this game, we finally have the real goal. Save the world and the 20 or so people living in it. How do we do that? Well, by getting more power cells, of course. The lava going to Gaul Citadel is extra hot, so we need a total of 72 power cells for the speeder to withstand it. This last chunk of the game is, well, it's not the best. We only have 2 zones, the Spider Caves and the Snowy Mountain. Those 2 NPCs I mentioned, that are actually really just 1, they hold 4 of the power cells alone. It really kind of feels like they ran out of time or money or both here, and it feels rough. Since the Spider Caves sound horrible, I'm going to start with the Snowy Mountain. The first thing we see coming up here is this glowing pillar. What is it? What does it do? Why is it here? No idea, but jumping on it makes it go away, so I guess I'll do that. Pause menu calls them precursor blockers, which isn't super helpful either, but I guess I'll turn them off. Unlike the rest of the zones, I couldn't really tell what the main goal of coming here was, so I just kind of wandered around. Eventually, I found a place to hop on a flut and jump around until I found a power cell, which honestly this whole section was pretty fun. This also opened a door above, and thankfully a platform took me right to it. Evidently, and by that I mean according to the pause menu, this is a lurker fort, and all there really was to do here was, again, just jump around until I ended up at yet another power cell. A lot of this area was like this, just wandering around until a power cell appeared. This area so far has been the worst for me as far as a lack of direction goes. The environment overall is nice. I love the look of a snowy mountaintop. Unfortunately, the area itself just really doesn't hold up. Plus, these ice physics are agonizing. Moving on. The spider caves are, while conceptually petrifying, an area I love the idea of, but the execution just kind of isn't there. To start, the spiders really aren't as present in the caves as I thought they would be. There are a few here and there, but really they're mostly just in one area, and it's a lot of babies. Again, conceptually petrifying, but the rest of the cave is all verticality and glowing crystals. This is a mining operation overrun by lurkers. Giant centipedes chew through the support beams, mining lurkers chip away at the walls to free a massive precursor relic. This all sounds great, right? Well, in practice, what this turns to is a confusing maze of jumps and fighting with the camera to see where you're going. You can only hit the centipedes in first person, and honestly, it feels like the game just decides if you're going to hit them or not at random. The massive chamber holding the precursor machine is the worst platforming in the game, in my opinion. The forced 2D camera is too close to the character, resulting in a really short view of what's ahead. Right here, I fell because the bars above me, straight up, just were not on screen, leaving me with absolutely no idea how to proceed. I didn't even mean to do it right the second time, it was an accident. And in this section, I don't even know how you're supposed to get over there. I long jumped to this platform, but that feels so much like a sequence break, I genuinely hope that I was just missing something. Now listen, I'm being really harsh on this game right now, but that's because I have really enjoyed it up until this point. This last hub takes all the things about Jak and Daxter that are fun and just makes it all painful. I'm upset because I desperately wish that these last areas were better. There's only one area left, the Citadel. Let's see if it can make up for this. There is of course also one more speeder section, which again is pretty solid for all the same reasons as the last ones, just with more difficulty. It is a solid conclusion to the speeder mechanics. At the end of the Zoomer level, we find out that Samos has now also been captured, and Kira begs us to free him and all the other sages, which I was already planning to do anyway, but whatever. And then we enter the Citadel. Samos exposits a bit about the massive robot in the center, letting us know that Gaul and Maya plan to use it to open the Dark Eco silos and ruin the whole planet. It's protected by a force field and will need the power of all 4 sages to shut it down. Again, was planning to save them all anyway, so let's get to it. All in all, I really enjoy the Citadel. I like the platforms that drop based on the color you jump on. I like the different areas using different eco types to provide a unique challenge before freeing each sage. I like the challenge each path provides. This area also has a clear set of objectives: free the sages and destroy the robot. Freeing the yellow sage is a series of harrowing jumps across an endless chasm, and failure at any point requires you to start from the beginning. The blue sage is a long challenge across slowly moving platforms. The red sage forces you down a hallway filled to the brim with these baby kangaroos that break the audio. Freeing Samos isn't really a challenge, but climbing up the massive spinning arms of this machine at least feels like you're leading up to the finale. And then you get to the top, you free Samos, and let me just say, this dude is the worst. Samos is such an unnecessary dick throughout the entire game, but I expected him to at least be grateful that we freed him, saved the other sages, and are about to go save the planet. But no, this dude is like a father you just can't make proud no matter how hard you try. Even when he says we're
Real heroes now.
he says it like such a tool, and then he straight up says, nope, I'm not gonna help you. Good luck fighting this stupidly massive, impossibly ancient robot. Sure, Daxter is an ass too, but 3 days ago he got turned into a squirrel, so I can at least cut him a little slack. Anyway, Gall and Maya show back up again, ranting about how they're gonna fix the world by destroying it, or something, before hopping into the robot, and we now have to give chase. The final battle is, as far as boss fights go, pretty simple. Don't get me wrong, I did die a few times, but this was more due to my own stupidity than it actually being challenging. The overall design of it is fun though. It shoots green life eco into the silo to spawn these monstrosities. Red eco bombs explode in rings you need to jump over to avoid. Yellow eco shoots out in a massive blast that seems intimidating, but really if you just walk to the side, it can't hit you. I think the big bomb is meant to represent blue eco, but that may also just be me reaching to find a connection. Dodge the attacks, shoot him a couple times until he breaks, and before you know it, you've beat the game. Final cutscene plays, including an almost kiss that feels criminally undeserved, and we get a sting that something else might happen if we get all 100 power cells. I've seen what happens, it's not really worth it, but it does lead up to the second game, so do with that what you will. And that's it. The credits roll. Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy is over. I know I was hard on this game in a lot of ways that can be chalked up to it just being old, but that's the point of this video. I wanted to go back and find out if I can still find enjoyment in this simpler game from my childhood, and I'm happy to say that yeah, for the most part I really enjoyed my time with this title. Not everything was great, and the camera took a lot of getting used to, but I can confidently say that if you've never played this before and you enjoy a platformer now and then, I would totally recommend this, even today. But what do you think? Do you disagree with what I've said here? I mean, probably. We've all got different opinions on what we like or don't like. Let me know in the comments, and I would really love to hear your thoughts.